SmartShare Housing's Homeshare Slow program has, since 2017, assisted hundreds of clients and thousands of community members in considering the homeshare process and whether it makes sense for them. To date, Homeshare Slow clients have received direct cash benefits of roughly $2.5 million, along with companionship, security, and enhanced ability to age in place. Welcome to SmartShare Housing Solutions, where we work to create housing solutions by connecting people and homes. I'm Vicki, the Deputy Director, and my co-host and guest is Anne, our Executive Director. Thanks for being here, Anne.
Thanks for having me.
Today's discussion is intended to help people who are thinking about possibly home sharing to make a decision of whether or not they should move forward with it. Basically, we're trying to answer two questions. What is home sharing and is it right for me?
Home sharing is sharing a home space with non-relatives or family members. We really look at it as some common spaces with people that we're not related to in general. And the main thing to keep in mind is that there will be shared spaces, but it's not essential to share everything. So we like to help people understand that they can set out the parameters of what they may want to share in advance and what they don't want to share. It's not an all or nothing that I think some people get caught up on thinking it has to be.
With that definition in mind of home sharing, I think that it's helpful to think about different types of home sharing. And we often think, like you were saying, not family, but that was my first thought was family. And, I've had my aging father live with me, and now my grown children, adult children live with me. And so that, of course, was my first thought. But it could be strangers or chosen family that we share with as well. And regardless of the relationships between the individuals who are sharing the house, there are some common elements. And one of those is that certain things have to happen in a house to keep it running, especially when you're sharing with each other. And that can include chores like taking out the trash, cleaning up your own messes, and that kind of thing. Um, Typically, the more help someone requires, the less the rent would be. So if you're asking someone to help you with more tasks like washing windows and driving, grocery shopping, then sometimes people will reduce the rent for that kind of a home share, and we would call that a task exchange, right? Um, and so, in an extreme example, somebody needs help with the activities of daily living, like dressing or food prep, cooking, and maybe there would be no rent charged. But it would be super important to think through this level of task exchange before deciding on a home share.
Certainly, we see a lot of our elder adult clients need help with some small things like taking out trash on steep driveways or things that aren't that time consuming but have to be done at a set time or regularly.
Yeah, between checking the mail or vacuuming or whatever, some of that stuff is just expected when you live in a space together. But there are other things that might not be a normal part of that expectation, but you can ask for different things. I mean, that's okay. And there are good reasons to home share, but there are also good reasons not to. And I think, Anne, you've had a lot of experience with this and that you have some great ideas to share with us on that.
That's right. As people come into the prospect of home sharing as something they may not have done before, other than with direct nuclear family members, it's really important to think about why people would want to do it. And so, what we see with hundreds of clients now in shares, most often it's a financial interest. Either the home provider needs some extra income and would like to collect some rent, and the person hunting for a home, the home seeker, needs a place to stay and lower rent maybe than an apartment somewhere else. And so that financial interest is often the primary interest we see, but not always the only one. We also see people wanting to share because they'd like to live with someone else, and the social component of having a home sharer, someone to chat with, share meals with, and be around We also see an interest in safety, that some people feel safer than with a housemate, someone around, to be around at night and hear things or call on if there's a specific need.
People saying, I just don't want to be alone. I don't, if something happened, I wouldn't want to be, I'd be here all by myself. I mean, that safety and security and that social connection is really valuable.
We find often our clients need emergency help. So we have many stories of home sharing housemates driving each other to the emergency room and being there in specific kind of emergency on call cases. Yeah. And then other reasons we see are environmental interests. Any room we can use to create a house for someone means we don't have to build a whole new house somewhere else. We have to often heat and cool empty rooms and clean them. So we're using not only construction resources if we had to build new housing, but maintenance resources for maybe spaces that aren't getting used. And so that's of interest to a lot of us and our clients, that kind of efficiency and sustainability factor, even not needing the other things. And then finally, I think there's a community mindedness. There's a general frustration, and I think knowledge that a lot of people are housing challenged. So a number of our clients come into this with an interest in helping the community and providing housing, not waiting for the government or some nonprofit or somebody else to come up with solutions. It's something we can kind of grasp and take into our own hands and
Yeah.
kind of provide. And it's a nice way then to help the community, but also help ourselves. If people don't need the rent or the companionship, it's a way to make some extra money and help the community and, have some fun spending money for things that we don't
Sure.
necessarily need while providing help to people who need it. And then there are also a lot of reasons not to share. So over the years, some of our task at SmartShare Housing and the Homeshare Slow program has been to help potential clients understand why they may not want to share. And we see several reasons. Sometimes personalities, really strong personalities with strong political views, for example, maybe people that would have a hard time sharing space with others, and not expressing their opinions or, arguing or coming down hard line. So, personality is something to watch of how amenable and interested people are in learning other perspectives versus just sticking to their own. So,
Yeah.
that's something we counsel clients on regularly. And maybe if we see there's less of an interest in learning and a high interest in just sticking to our track and a way of things, that may not be a comfortable situation to bring someone into. And then we see several other reasons. Privacy. Some people are very private. They don't want housemates near their files,
Mm,
um, or hearing their phone conversations or
hmm.
involved in their life.
Yeah.
And so those are cases then where that can be hard to sort out with some home configurations. With some home configurations, it can be quite easy to create mostly private spaces. But with
Okay.
other configurations, that can be tough. And if
Yeah.
we sense clients need a high level of privacy, that may be a case where we would counsel against any kind of home sharing, or at least think about how to create very separate and private spaces. Again,
Yeah.
which can be done in a lot of cases. Security is another factor. If we sense people are afraid of others and wouldn't trust someone in their home, even with background screening and an interview process, that's a case where we may not want to see someone invited into the home to put either party at risk. If
Yeah.
there's just a perception of fear and security issue, we want to make sure the home provider's needs are met there, save for locking the doors or windows. We have
Mm,
some cases where home providers don't even want windows open at all,
mm,
unlocked.
yeah.
And that put their housemates in a tricky position where they can't get fresh air.
Yeah. That's interesting thinking because on the one hand, some people want to home share because of that sense of security of having another person. And for a different person, having that other person makes them feel less secure. So that's fascinating to me.
That's right. And that's kind of right, just that sort of duality of it, where it can bring benefit to some, but have too high a cost to others. And we
Hmm.
don't want to put sharers in the position where they can't get some fresh air or they're putting their housemates feeling at risk and insecure. So that's something we want to watch. And along with that, security for possessions. Sometimes when we go through the home and talk to potential home providers, we find that they're very worried about dishes or items in the household, that they're worried about a home sharer touching, breaking, or taking. And that's another case where if there's a real high sense of that need, we may be better off not introducing someone into that home and putting that level of tension high.
Yeah.
And then there are some other cases where we wouldn't want to bring in a home sharer. And we don't see these too often, but I've experienced them several times, so worth bringing up, where we have some uncertainty about how long the homeowner is going to be in the home, or whether they're in a case of foreclosure with a mortgage in arrears. That can bring a home sharer into an uncomfortable situation that's always kind of puts their new home in jeopardy. And
Hmm.
that can be an uncomfortable kind of day to day situation of uncertainty that we may want to not bring home sharers into.
Yeah. Either for maybe a health reason, somebody wouldn't be able to stay there, or for, financial reasons. I could see more than one reason why someone might not be able to stay in the home that they've had for years, and that you don't want to have such an unpredictable future for yourself.
That's right. Home sharing by nature, we generally recommend month to month agreements because if there's something that's not working, we want either party to be able to exit. But if there's too high a chance it's not going to work out over time or it's going to abruptly end, that creates undue uncertainty and can make it not worth the move and the risk and
Yeah.
better off not done. And just those two reasons you bring up, health and financial uncertainty, are the primary ones we see
Yeah.
there.
Nobody can predict the future, but you do have to be really honest with yourself. What state am I in? Am I ready to home share? Or who am I really willing to live with? And that lack of clarity, if you don't have clarity on that, you're just making your life more difficult than it needs to be for yourself and other people.
I know that's something we want to talk about next, really, that kind of question and inventory of priorities there.
Yeah, so like maybe I'm not willing to live with someone of the opposite gender, or maybe I am as long as they don't share a bathroom. Or maybe I don't want to home share with a nurse because they might work the night shift and I don't want to have that disturbing my own schedule. Or maybe what if I don't want to have a home share with a student? Or what if I don't want to share my home with someone who's doesn't eat meat or does eat meat? I mean, what point is it no longer legal for me to just make these kinds of decisions?
Well, every example that I'm laughing at that you bring up, we've seen it over the
Uh,
years of
yeah.
operating the Homeshare Slow program in San Luis Obispo. And so each of those questions is worth addressing in some cases. And it's important to have a general overview of what you can do and can't do in terms of choosing housemates. So basically, we're talking about California here. Smart Share Housing operates in San Luis Obispo County in California. So laws are different state to state. And if people are watching this in other countries, certainly in other countries. So we're going to be talking a little bit about fair housing laws applicable to California and to some degree the federal US standards here. But first of all, like we've mentioned, you can think about who you want to share with. It's not an all or nothing proposition that if you decide to share your home, you have to share with anyone. That's just not the case at all. There's a broad latitude to think about who you'd be comfortable and safe sharing your home with and who you wouldn't. And fair housing laws that apply to home rentals apply differently to home shares where you're sharing space. On the practical level, you might be sharing a bathroom in the case of a single bathroom home. And so state laws are practical sometimes. And this is
Sometimes.
a case where there's some practicality there that you are allowed to discriminate on gender, for example, which you're usually not under fair housing. But the laws recognize that if you're sharing a bathroom and a kitchen and you might be walking around in your robe, maybe
Hmm.
you're a woman who wouldn't be comfortable doing that with a man.
Hmm.
And so women are allowed to advertise that they would just like a woman. Similarly, a male that may just prefer a male housemate. That's
Hmm.
not something you can do listing a general apartment or separate unit.
Okay.
On other fair housing, it's less clear what other fair housing laws don't apply. In general, we want to encourage people to open their consideration to a broad spectrum of the population. But that said, as one talks to potential housemates, there are a lot of questions that one can ask and reasons for some discrimination in the process. For example, I'm hypersensitive to chemical fumes and smells and smoke. So I would not, could not have a housemate who burns scented candles, who
Mm-hmm.
wears that blue deodorant and uses that soap. Those smells, dryer sheets, those
Yeah.
smells can make me very sick.
Hmm.
And so that's an example where that's something I need to talk to people about very clearly. And anyone who does those things just can't be a fit for my household.
Well, could you discriminate based on political party? I mean, I can imagine a scenario where someone might want to.
Yeah, in the same household, it's a little tricky. There's some gray area. If you don't choose a housemate, you can interview housemates and talk to people. And you don't have to give them a list of reasons why you don't choose them.
Mm.
So, under fair housing, for example, I could not say I only want a supporter of some political group in my home. At the same time, I could say I could not choose if a candidate came along that operated contrary to my political views and I knew I'd be uncomfortable living with, I could not choose them.
Hmm.
So I could tell them after talking to them or learning about them, emailing with them, I could say, I'm sorry, it's not going to be a fit, period.
Mm.
And I can have a list of reasons why that may be. I don't have to tell them. I could run afoul of certain protected categories under fair housing if I express those views.
Mm.
Similarly, as an agency that has helped people find housemates, SmartShare Housing's Homeshare Slow program, we can't allow discrimination in our postings or matches per se, but our clients can choose whoever they want to choose and not live with anyone they don't want to live with. So
Okay.
there's still a wide degree of flexibility there. And
Okay.
so it's a good idea to look and see to understand roughly how fair housing works and what to look out for
Yeah.
um, in that process that is a little tricky, but still allows a wide degree of flexibility on who one chooses and doesn't lock anyone into choosing someone they don't want to live with and they won't be comfortable. At the end of the day, that's kind of the important piece. There has to be some discretion on what's posted and what's said,
Yep.
but people still can post a listing and not choose anyone who's applied at the end of the day.
Right, that's true. And just keep in mind that the more picky you are, the less likely you are to find someone that will meet your expectations. So, I
And
mean,
that's
you just that's totally fair. Speaking of laws, there are tax implications to home sharing. Then there's also insurance. And I know that there's different kinds of, and renter's insurance is a thing. And when I rented apartments and things, I had renter's insurance. But what about from a homeowner's perspective?
mhm. It's important for homeowners to speak with their agent or broker as they approach home sharing to understand what may be covered with their home sharers, and particularly to make sure they have adequate liability insurance as part of their homeowner's package, along with other coverages. So it's an important one thinking about it. Most homeowners insurances have adequate kind of bundle of coverage that'll cover their tenants, but not necessarily all. So it's really important to get the advice from their agents or brokers. And like you said, tenants' items won't be covered. So if my home burned down and my housemate lost some items, my property insurance wouldn't cover my housemate's items. So that's where it's a good idea for tenants to have the renter's insurance package and to talk to them about that risk if they don't have it for their personal items. And there's also some added liability protection for homeowners if their tenants, housemates have renters packages. So
Oh,
it's a good idea on those, especially if there are pets involved.
mm.
I've found that often homeowners policies don't cover damages from renters' pets or housemates' pets.
Oh, yeah.
So if there are going to be potential liabilities or damages from housemates' pets, it becomes more important to look into or ensure that housemates have their renter policies.
Oh, yeah. Good point. That's why we make these videos.
And
So,
so that's
yeah.
something that each person's situation and policy is a little different. But at the end of the day, that's something that's really personal to each property and property owner and important to talk to the professional agents and brokers about directly for your
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah. Well, the final thing that we had to talk about on our list today is thinking about the space and what we might need to do to prepare it for a home share. So, what kind of space would we rent out? What will it take to get ready? But there's a lot of things that we could think about. Is do I have furniture in that room or that space already? Am I willing to move it? A lot of people I know have furniture when they want to bring it into a home share. And in that case, like, could I get rid of the furniture that's in that room? Do I have a place to keep it? Would I just sell it? So thinking about that, and stuff can be very important to people. So if I'm not willing to part with it, can I put it somewhere else? Um, and that brings up storage space. If so, storing my own stuff, but if my potential housemate is bringing things with them, is there room for it? Where would they put their clothes, their other things that they're bringing? And everyone needs a food prep area. So can they use my kitchen, the whole big kitchen for the whole house? Will they have their own separate little kitchen area? Will it be some kind of combination? Do I need to do something to prepare that space for them? Like emptying out part of the pantry, giving them a cupboard in the kitchen, you know.
Those are things that people make fun of us for bringing up and don't like, but are really essential to clarify what spaces will be whose.
Well, like the bathroom, will they have a whole separate bathroom? Will they be sharing with me? If we're sharing a bathroom, like cupboards that they can have, or, how they would access that. Parking is another thing. Um, there's not always a lot of parking. So will they be in the garage? Will they be on the curb somewhere else? And then finally, like when you go to actually, if you decide to do it, then you're going to need to take photos of your space. And getting a good photo can be a little tricky. Most cell phones will take decent photos. and just having it be cleaned up and good lighting and an angle that shows important features like doors and any furniture that will be included, closets, uh, basically any space that's the private space that someone would rent, the shared space that they would have access to would be something you'd want to take a picture of. But don't take a picture of your home address and post it on the internet for everyone. Well, hopefully this video will have helped people make a decision about whether home sharing is right for them. And that hopefully now they understand what is home sharing and how it's different from other kinds of rental opportunities. And the process of making that decision is a little clearer for people, hopefully, after this video.
For more information on home sharing, do visit our website, smartshare.housing.solutions.org, or email us at info@smartshare.housing.solutions.org. Thanks again.